Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McCrae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going? Honestly, how am I doing? I am actually, to be quite honest, I'm hungry. I had a little bit of food this morning before we podcasted, but it is now 12:30 our time and I'm hungry. So that's how I'm feeling. But it kind of ties into what we're going to chat about anyways. So it's perfect. Well, let's get this done so you can go and eat.
How are you doing?
I'm genuinely well. I've seen my brother and his wife and their two kids today, and we went for a socially distanced walk along the canal, and it was delightful. They are some of my favorite people, so I'm genuinely very well.
Good. And how have you been behaving yourself?
I've been behaving myself really well. We're getting quite close to Christmas now, and I realized that we record this ahead of time. So this is being released on January the 1st. This was recorded a few weeks ago. So in the run up to Christmas, I am, I guess a woo-woo person would say, manifesting the kind of Christmas that I really want. But I'm starting to think about my values and the actual kind of family time at Christmas. We have 5 days here that we're allowed to be in other people's households as a kind of Christmas break from lockdown, and starting to think about with Jim what we want that to be and what we want to get out of it. So we've been doing a lot of thoughts about that, and we're really excited that we're going to have a very lovely, calm and peaceful Christmas.
That's awesome. We are keeping it small for sure here. So yeah, but
how have you been behaving yourself this week?
And not even just this week, but over the past few months, I have not been snoozing my alarm, which I'm sure Tom is incredibly grateful for because I used to be a snooze several times in the morning person. And half the time I wouldn't even realize I was snoozing. So I use this little app and it makes you either type out a phrase or do a memory problem or a math problem or something like that. And so it has totally shifted that behavior. It was more of an antecedent strategy in place that it has helped immensely. And waking up, not snoozing, just helps even throughout the day to feel like I've won the morning a little bit versus snoozing and way past and then rushing out the door.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what are we going to chat about today?
My speciality. I think that for some, well, I know exactly why it's become my speciality, but what I do well and what a lot of clients come to me for, weight loss. So I am really passionate about this, and I'm really sorry because you're probably going to hear a lot of me in the next few episodes rather than Emily. But this is my big thing. And I think there are a few different behavior analysts working in health and fitness now, and we all have different specialities. There are behavior analysts working within mindfulness and meditation, behavior analysts working within sports or within people who particularly want to build muscle and become bodybuilder-esque type people. That is not my jam. My jam is weight loss and doing it in a safe and scientific and sensible way. So I wanted to do this series because come January the 1st, I know that a lot of people will have the goal of trying to lose weight. And there is a lot of misinformation out there, and it hurts my soul to see people wasting tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on these awful kind of schemes of the cabbage soup diet or the keto or the this or the that or the other, and they are not based on science, and they frankly can be quite damaging. So I wanted to get back to basics with this of sometimes you might find the things that we're going through too basic. but we're going through them for a reason, because we're going back to the simple science of weight loss. And it is simple and it's not complex, and you can learn it and do it. We just need to get back to basics first.
Love going back to the basics.
Yeah.
That's what I do with all of my clients. Start with the basics. So I'm
Nice.
excited.
Cool. So let's start off with definitions like we always do. What is weight loss? So our weight is simply our kind of gravitational pull on the earth. And that includes everything. It includes your bones, your muscles, your tissues, everything. But when people talk about their weight, that's typically not what they're talking about. What they're talking about with weight loss is actually fat loss. And that's quite important. And as we'll talk about later, because to be crude, I could quite easily lose 5 pounds in 24 hours by weighing myself first thing in the morning rather than last thing at night, making myself dehydrated, going for a big toilet visit. There's lots of different things. And I could lose weight. I wouldn't have lost any fat. I would have just lost food volume and water. So what we're talking about here, I'm going to keep calling weight loss because everyone else calls it weight loss. What I'm really talking about, though, is fat loss, which is what most people are aiming for.
So you mentioned, I'm going to interrupt. You mentioned weighing yourself at night versus in the morning. So do you have your clients weigh themselves at night when they do their weigh-ins? Or is it typically in the
No,
morning?
first thing in the morning,
First
and
thing in
it
the morning.
depends on what the clients what that everybody's very different, and some people have a bad relationship with the scale and some clients have a great relationship with the scale. If I could choose for them, and I can't always, I would rather that they weigh themselves every single day, first thing in the morning. So they wake up, they use the bathroom, and then they weigh themselves. And for some people, that almost breaks the bad relationship with the scale because they see it every day and they see it fluctuate so every day. And so
Mm-hmm.
they soon realize, oh, the number doesn't actually really matter, because it fluctuates every day regardless, even though I know that I've been hitting all the behaviors that Joe's been telling me to hit. So first thing in the morning. It's a scientific fact that you will weigh more at night than you do in the morning, and that's not connected with water weight, food volume, and no one really knows why.
Hmm.
But what we do know first thing in the morning is that you haven't eaten for hopefully 8 hours unless you're midnight snacking, and so you're more likely to get a consistent result first thing in the morning.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's what weight loss is. It's fat loss. I guess the next thing would be who could or should have weight loss as a goal. And I'm going to tread really carefully here because it's quite a hotly debated topic, and something that I don't want to upset anyone around. At the end of the day, everyone's got complete autonomy over their own bodies and nobody can tell you what to do. And if you choose to have a certain body size, that is completely up to you. But there are certain scientific or medical facts that we can't escape, and having a higher than healthy body weight is associated with increased risk for a lot of different serious diseases like diabetes and strokes and coronary heart disease, different types of cancer, sleep apnea, osteoarthritis, lots of different problems. Now, I don't want to go into this too much, but there are some body positivity groups that will say that actually the science is wrong and that it's separate. You can be obese and morbidly obese and not suffer with any of those diseases. There are a handful of studies that have looked into this, and what those studies show is that yes, it's true. It's not that being overweight causes those problems, but to find the people that are obese and don't have any of those problems is almost impossible. They are unicorns, because when you find someone who's obese, the reason they are obese is they engage in the behaviors that lead to those diseases. And so if by some magical reason someone is engaging in all sorts of healthful behaviors and is also obese, yes, they might not also have increased risk for those diseases, but it's very rare. And typically it's a correlation, but the people who are obese engage in behaviors that increases risk for all those diseases. I feel like I've repeated myself in lots of different ways there. Did that make sense?
Yes. And I think that helps for people to hear it in a few different ways and hear that, when you look at the studies and when you see that, how many people, maybe it's sedentary behavior and that's what's leading to blockages or blood clots. Again, my my area of expertise is not totally this, but it's in more of the movement side of it. So that's where I can kind of see that coming into play.
Right. So at some point, I think there needs to be a bigger conversation about how we talk about bigger bodies, how the medical profession considers bigger bodies and thin privilege and all of this. But that's not for this episode or this series even. Actually, if any of our listeners knows an expert in that area about thin privilege and how we talk about bigger bodies and how society perceives bigger bodies, please email us their details, because I would love to interview them and have them on the show.
Absolutely.
But for this, the reason why we're talking about this is because generally a higher BMI, people of a higher weight who are overweight and obese have an increased risk of lots of different health problems. And so reducing their weight would reduce their risk of these diseases. So all of that being said, who should lose weight? People with a BMI above 25, because they're more likely to experience health issues. Who shouldn't we be wanting to lose weight? People with a BMI of under 18 and a half. Now, some of our older listeners, my mum, hi mum, will say, hang on, I thought the BMI was 20. The old advice used to be 20 to 25 was healthy. It's been updated recently, not even recently, in the last few years, to be 18 and a half to 25. So how do we measure weight? How do we measure fat? And how do we measure fat loss? We use BMI and weight to measure body fat because it's really easy. It's available to most people in their homes, and it's a decent general measure over time. You'll hear a lot of criticism about BMI, and that's for lots of different reasons. It's not perfect. Bodybuilders who are incredibly lean in terms of their fat, but incredibly muscular, will be classified as obese on the BMI scale. But they're not fat. It's just that the BMI doesn't always work for all types of people, and doesn't necessarily work for different races, different heights, but it's a good, really general measure. There are lots of other measures like skin fold, like using calipers that a personal trainer might use, body circumference measurements like your hip to waist ratio. There's bioimpedance, spectroscopy. I can't say it properly. There's the DEXA scan. There's the bod pod. What do you use at the gym?
We use an
InBody?
InBody, which is a bioimpedance one, which is really, it's cool. It's super cool.
Yeah. And there's lots of different tests, and they use lots of different ways to measure body fat. And they're quite varying in their accuracy and in their expense. So the absolute gold standard of measuring body fat would be a multi-component model, and it uses multiple tests to measure body mass. So it measures body mass, body volume, body water, bone content. And so it uses a mix of different tests like hydrostatic weight, the DEXA scan, bioimpedance, spectroscopy, and its accuracy is generally on less than 1% variance. So it's really, really accurate. But it's only available in medical research facilities. It's not available to the public. And if you did try and pay for it yourself, it would cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, which is why we use weight and we use BMI, because everyone has a set of bathroom scales and everyone can Google BMI calculator. And so all the others that we've just mentioned, whether it's skin calipers or even the bod pod or the InBody, there is a degree of inaccuracy about them. So that's why we use weight. It's really easy, it's cheap, and it's available to everyone. And generally over time, it's a general, if you use the same weighing scales at the same time of day, it's a good, decent general measure of weight and weight loss. Whew. Making sense so far?
Making sense. Yes.
Okay, good. So how do I lose weight, or how do I lose fat? Can we play a really quick game? And I'm doing this for effect more than anything. Could you shout out at me all of any diet that you've heard of, any method of losing weight that you've heard of, and I will try and give a quick and dirty, snappy answer of how it works.
Keto.
People will try and tell you it's about insulin resistance and changing your blood sugar levels, but how it works is calorie deficit. Next.
Paleo.
Calorie deficit. Not being clean, it's a calorie deficit. Next.
Oh man, this is where my brain doesn't go because I don't even use them. Atkins.
Similar as keto, they'll try and tell you it's about insulin and your blood sugar levels, but in reality, it's a calorie deficit.
Calorie deficit. We're seeing a trend here.
Yeah.
Trying to think of others.
Weight Watchers.
Oh yeah.
Slimming world, a calorie deficit. Cabbage
Mm.
soup diet, a calorie deficit.
Never heard of that one.
Cabbage soup diet. Oh, it's the worst. Never try it. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is that lots of different proponents of different diets are often trying to sell you something, and they'll try and come up with this huge spiel about why their diet is the best and how it works the best. The way that a diet works is because it puts you into a calorie deficit one way or another. That is the most simple answer. That is the simple science for calorie deficit. If you are not in a calorie deficit, you cannot lose fat. If you are in a calorie surplus, you will put on fat. That is the simple science.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners,
Yep.
come at me with any kind of facts that you think make that not true. It's not true. Okay, so calories in. A calorie deficit is just when you're eating fewer calories than you are using. Other than fat loss surgery, when a surgeon literally goes in and cuts fat away, there is no other way. A calorie deficit is how you lose fat. And all fat loss can be explained with calories in and calories out. So, what's a calorie? A calorie is the amount of energy that's needed to raise the temperature of a kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. But what we actually really use it for is the unit that we measure energy that we consume in our food and expend in our exercise. So a calorie is just how much energy a food is giving us. The fat on our body could be seen as energy that it's just stored energy on our bodies that we could use. And when we exercise, we use that energy to power us through that movement. So how to create a calorie deficit? Quite simply, by eating less and maybe moving more. Any questions so far?
How do we, and maybe you're getting into this, how do we determine your calories out if you don't have a specific tracking method of like a watch or a tracker?
Our watch or tracker is accurate.
True.
No. So it's a really tricky one because like the Apple Watch will tell you your calories, or MyFitnessPal will try and tell you your calories, or Fitbit will try and tell you your calories. And they don't publish their exact algorithm for how they work out everybody's different energy expenditure. And some just use it on movement like steps, and some use heart rate as well, but they don't publish how they do it. So it's really hard then for researchers to work out how accurate they're being or otherwise. But in general, they found to be a little bit inaccurate. So to work out what your daily calorie amount should be to not lose weight, not put on weight, but maintain a steady weight, is you need to work out your total daily energy expenditure, or your TDEE. And if you type that into Google, you will find many calculators that do that, and they all work on the same. It's called the Benedict-Harris formula. So they all work on the same formula. It doesn't matter which one you use. Find a free one. Don't pay for it. So your total daily energy expenditure is made up of 4 different elements. It's made up of your basal metabolic rate, so how many calories your bodies burn at rest just to function and survive. And typically that makes up about 60% of your TDEE. And so if you were just going to lie in bed all day, 60% of your calories would be used up just with BMR.